Let's meet tonight's part of panel. We've got former criminal defense attorney and Fox News contributor Emily Compagno is here, along with the one and only Richard Fowler, host of The Richard Fowler Show, also a Fox News contributor, and from Reason Magazine, where he serves as editor-at-large and award-winning host of the Fifth Column podcast. It is Matt Welch. Welcome, everyone.
Hiya.
Woo! So much to discuss. Let's start with Liz, because it was Biden that everyone was supposedly going to go after, and he definitely took some shots in debates 2 and 3. But now Liz is the big threat. How should the other candidates handle her? Should they all go after her?
I think whether they should or not, they absolutely will, and they need to, because she's been the only one like showing any kind of momentum anywhere. Biden's still sort of in more or less the same place. Other people are down. They should go after her. And the way that I think that they will, based on how they have behaved so far, particularly the former centrists who are running, so like Cory Booker, Joaquin Castro, and Beto O'Rourke, all of whom have positions in the past that are not super progressive, actually. They like, charter schools and things like that.
At least they did.
They did, right? And they're trying to hide all this.
Now they're hypocritical gum flappers. They're saying whatever it takes for progressives to like them.
They're terrified. And so what they say, they try to hide that past by trying to out-woke one another. So Joaquin Castro is like, Bernie, he's not even hardcore enough. He's not for slavery reparations. I am. Yeah. Beto O'Rourke is a one-man get-out-the-vote team for the Republican Party. He just every day says, I'll take your gun and I'm going to take away
tax your church.
Tax your church based on viewpoint discrimination. So I think those are the people who are more likely to go after Elizabeth Warren where she's weak, which is with black voters specifically, and with the whole Native American thing, which rubs people the wrong way.
Okay, so we finally saw Bernie and Liz on the same stage, but it's been an interesting dynamic with them because they have been pretty much in lockstep because they both need the other supporters. They cannot afford to alienate them, but Bernie made the shift. What do you chalk that up to? He's trying to get back into the race since he's now seen as being wounded in terms of his health, or is this when they make the big split and he tries to elbow her out and hurt her front-runner status?
Well, listen, I think if you talk to Bernie supporters, they will all tell you that they would vote for Elizabeth Warren. We had a lot of them call into Serious Progress this morning, and they said that, right? We would vote for Elizabeth Warren if she is the nominee. We will vote for Liz Warren if we think that Bernie drops out of this race. So I think that there is some potential to shift there.
So is Bernie just going to try and convince people that he's perfectly healthy, he feels better, and he's staying in, he can raise money, so shut up?
Yeah, I think that's going to be the Bernie strategy. What you're going to see Senator Sanders do tomorrow is going to show I'm healthy, I'm viable, I'm still in this race. Even though I'm third, there's still momentum behind me. I think what you see Joe Biden do is what Joe Biden has to do here, he's waiting on South Carolina. He knows he has a big black base. He has to keep black voters
always
engaging.
Dangerous, yeah, but that's always a dangerous strategy. Rudy Giuliani tried to do the same thing.
Yeah, when he was waiting on Florida.
Yeah. I mean, I always look at that, I'm like, you should be doing some other stuff in the meantime.
Oh, absolutely. And so I think what you're going to see Biden try to do, he released his ethics plan. I think it's a big mistake for Democrats like Julian Castro, former HUD secretary, to sort of attack Biden on Hunter Biden, because what that does is give a win to Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is the one making this argument about Hunter when most media...
but you can't sit on your hands and say nothing. So people, as Matt
I think
pointed out...
we've seen folks come to his defense. Pete Buttigieg has come to his defense saying, yes, this is about Hunter, and there's reporting on both sides that Hunter's done nothing wrong, and Biden has done nothing wrong. Absolutely, we could talk about Hunter
between doing
and
something
not about
illegal and doing
Biden.
Something wrong. I think you can make the argument that it's wrong. He may not have broken any laws,
absolutely,
but there's a difference.
But the vice president has done nothing wrong, and he's done nothing illegal.
I mean, he has
and that's
done
what all
wrong.
the reporting.
It may not be illegal, but it certainly is wrong, and it's not acceptable from either party. But let's look at some of the other candidates who are still in this race, but barely hanging on, like Kamala Harris. She was one of the more interesting people. California moved up their primary, and that looked like a layup for her. That if she could do well in the Southeast and, shore up some of the states in the far West, she'd be fine. But she just keeps dropping. Why?
I'm not sure why, but she frankly has been one of the biggest disappointments for especially Californians that had placed a lot of faith in her. I came from California. She was the talk of the town for so long. For some reason, she hasn't been able, I think, to develop a cohesive policy to get out there in front where she feels confident, where she sounds confident in it, and where she sounds steady. I think that there was a lot of flip-flopping. There was a lot of defensive on her part, and I think her attitude, frankly, turned people off from her. And I think as others were rising, that's where Californians were placing their faith. Earlier, you asked, potential winners and losers. I do have to say that the most to gain tomorrow night, in my opinion, is Mayor Pete and Tulsi Gabbard, because the situation right now in Syria and Turkey, the two of them having the only deployment experience on the stage, I hope they will be asked about it, and I will be very interested to see how that resonates.
And I wrote that down because I want to see what they have to say. Those two in particular, I don't really care what anyone else has to say about foreign policy because I think they're just going to spout platitudes.
Yeah.
But those two, and I hope they give them enough time, and I hope they devote enough time to foreign policy and don't ask the same stereotypical questions that some of the other moderators have fallen into. And of course, tomorrow night's debate also features billionaire Tom Steyer. Believe it or not, this is his first 2020 debate. A lot of people have absolutely no idea who he is. And he didn't qualify for the last 3 debates. And he's got the polling and the donors this go-round somehow because he's got a lot of money. But he's got to work awful hard on name recognition. Of course, Tulsi Gabbard, last week, the Hawaii congresswoman and a Iraq war vet, threatened to boycott this debate. She said it was rigged against the lesser-known candidates. But today she tweeted, quote, "I will be attending the debate." Harumph. So which of the wannabes is best suited to make a big leap tomorrow? And how about the rowdy Yang gang? How are they going to be? I still like Andrew Yang in this race. I know he's not going to be president. He's not really going to do anything. But I appreciate his voice in politics. And I like about him what I like about Donald Trump. He's coming at this entire process from a very unorthodox perspective.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of the what the Fletch about him in his approach. And the more you get sick of, at any given moment, the kind of charade of politics and the way that people always talk about things and the sort of platitudes they get, the more that you want the guy who's not wearing the tie, dresses basically like Richard Fowler.
He
not
shops
quite as good.
from the Richard Fowler collection.
From the collection.
And just like has a rag bag of mostly crazy and occasionally pretty interesting ideas there, but who just at any time you hear him talk, you sort of hear the needle scratching across the record in a way that you don't with Amy Klobuchar, for example. So I think there's a lot of the lesser-known candidates who don't really have a big, different selling proposition of why they're still kind of bouncing around here. So I think it'll be someone who's more kind of a rando like Yang who has a chance to go up, or Tulsi if her message gets through.
And you know, Andrew Yang has tried to go for those big moments. Tom Steyer absolutely has to. Because, yes, Democrats know who he is because he's got a lot of money, and he's a 1 or 2 issue kind of guy, particularly climate change and impeachment. But he has to really define who he is as a person for anyone to latch on to a political campaign, because there's a big difference between having money and influence and actually making an emotional connection with voters.
Absolutely. This is a make or break moment for Tom Steyer. This will be his first debate. This could be his last debate. He's put up a lot of commercials, a lot of ads. People have seen his face all across the country because he's running a big ad. He's doing a lot of ad buys. Will this translate on the debates? We'll have to see. I think
he should start doing TikToks.
Yeah, he should.
That's what people watch.
Yeah.
They don't watch.
And I mean, I think also for somebody like a Kamala Harris, I think the reason why she's having so much trouble getting started is because if you talk to progressive-based voters, she sounds like a prosecutor. And prosecutors very unpopular to progressives because it speaks to this lack of criminal justice reform. It speaks to the fact that we have this prison industrial complex that does not work with progressive voters.
And she can't have it both ways on
No,
that.
she cannot.
She tries
really hard, and it does not really work well for her.
She was trying, her entire record in California was that she was never a prosecutor. That's the problem. So I think although she may read like that to progressives.
Attorney General, you're a prosecutor.
The top cop.
He's the top cop. She was a prosecutor.
She was, right, but her record did not reflect at the time. She was always trying to be a progressive prosecutor, and that's never really
Except for the people that she put in prison
lanes.
for a long time who she blocked from having due process.
Exactly.
Trials.
Exactly. 100%.
Prosecutor.
Quite prosecutorial.
And if I could make a quick point on my thoughts just on Elizabeth Warren, I think it's really interesting that this week she's come out and identified as her target Facebook, and really in this kind of concentrated
What does that do
manner.
for her?
Well, I think it releases her above the fray. So she's basically sitting there and saying, this is what I'm going to continue doing for you as president. This is what I think is so much more important rather than these other people on the stage. I'm focusing on the common enemy we all have.
So is she the only one who's pretending like she's actually president and going after the ideas that she thinks are most critical?
I think the only one who might also be doing that is Bernie Sanders, who I believe will take his heart attack in this situation, pivot it towards the necessity on his point of view for Medicare for all, show that he has the energy to be successful as a commander-in-chief in that Oval Office, and also the fact that he's differentiating himself so hardcore from Elizabeth Warren this week to say, don't give up on me, voters. Don't go to her. She's a capitalist. Stay with me, and I'll prove to you why.
But I think
who doesn't want to be a capitalist?
Nobody who's going to ever be a president of the United States of America. That's the thing. That clip shows why he's going to lose to Elizabeth Warren.
And I think
Because she
Because that's what I watched it. I'm like, that helps her
Yeah.
with moderate Democrats and undecided independents.
She can get Biden voters because she says, "Oh, I'm a capitalist," and then everything she does is, she's not being a capitalist.
And I think what
she wants to regulate the space between this phone and your pens.
Yeah.
She wants to regulate
Too much
absolutely.
space.
And I think that's what we also heard from voters when they called on the show today on Serious Progress is people who are Biden supporters says, I will also vote for Elizabeth Warren. So I think between these two men, it's Elizabeth Warren as this third choice, the second choice that both Biden voters and Bernie
I just
voters
think it's
can
interesting
vote for.
that Bernie's not going after Biden the way he's going after Liz. That he knows he has to make a big move. She is the biggest threat. He's still got a lot of money. He doesn't have to get out of the race right now. He's not like some of these, like Eric Swalwell, who's just run out of money and never had any goodwill.
I mean, there's a lot of candidates in this field that have a lot of money that won't have to get out of this race. I mean, I think there's a lot of arguments
President
for
John Delaney?
Beto to get out this race, Beto O'Rourke to get out this race, but Beto has $20 million left, so he'll be in this race for the foreseeable future.
And don't forget, CBS has Elizabeth Warren leading by 8 points in New Hampshire. So you mentioned earlier South Carolina and Biden kind of hanging his hopes on that. There are a lot of other states that seem to be favoring her hardcore.
Yes, and I'm sure that Bernie thought that he was just going to sew up New Hampshire. Like he's darning his socks. Part of panel returns a little bit later.